Well, welcome to the first interview I've ever done on television with this guy, Lee Anderson, MP. The man who always answers my phone calls, even if they're several hours later sometimes. But you do. You come back even when it's the most difficult subject, don't you?
Yeah, just to wind you up, Tony, really.
It's not just to wind me up. You are Mr. Box Office, let's be honest about it. Aren't you?
I think people like to listen to what I've got to say. I try and put my words in plain English in a way that people in Ashfield can understand. Remember, Tony, I'm from Ashfield, born and bred. That's where I live, it's where I'll always live. And I like to speak the language of my friends, my family and my constituents.
Let me roll that back, because if we start nicely, we can sort of fight later,
Yeah.
as we undoubtedly probably will, because we do from time to time. And sometimes we agree as well. Sometimes we wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah,
But let me come back to who you really are. Coal dust in the hair, went from very young. Your dad was in the pit. Your mum, I think, did she work in the cotton industry or something?
No, my mother worked at the Maritina factory. My sisters did. You know, growing up in Huthwaite, there was, you know, if you was a boy, you went to the pit. If you was a girl, you went to the local Maritina or Pretty Polly or Simpson Right and Low, which was something that's just what you did. And so I followed my dad and my granddad's into the pits, and my sisters followed my mum into the factory to make clothes.
No, you've never been backward in coming forward. I mean, I love the name you used to have, because you and I were out at a charity function and some ex-miner called out, "Hello there, Trigger!" Yeah. And you take that name quite naturally.
Yeah, well, we all had nicknames at the pit. I mean, there's lots of lads I still see now that they've got. I still call them by the nickname, even 30 years later, and I haven't got a clue what the proper name is. So it's just, I don't know, it's just a pit thing. It's a working class man thing. You have to realise, Tony, that working underground was a pretty difficult job, and you know, you've got a dark sense of humour. I mean, you wouldn't get away with it with some of these organisations these days. Some of the language and the way you put things. I mean, some of these woke civil servants have a meltdown if we use that sort of language in their company.
Now, when you were at school, you've told me this several times, you weren't great, but you did score some certificates, didn't you?
I got a few. I got my 25-yard swimming certificate. I've still got that. Yeah, I mean, I was reasonably bright, I think, at school. I think my parents wanted much more for me. My dad didn't want me to go down the pit, but I never really got on with school. I got on with seeing my friends there, and I used to love playing football and doing the sports and stuff like that and other stuff. But being sat in a classroom is a killer for me.
Anyhow, you went down the pit.
Yeah.
You became a striking miner.
No, I didn't. My dad was on strike. I started just a year after the strike, actually. All my family was on strike. My dad was on strike, and my uncles, they were all striking miners. I did go on the picket lines with my dad. Went to see Arthur Scargill many times. I think one thing that really excited me at the time was when I went to see twice, actually, on the same venue. One was in, I think it was the Leisure Centre car park at Mansfield, and then another time was at Chesterfield Town Hall. And the speakers they got on were Skinner, Scargill and Tony Benn. And the Monsignor Bruce Kent, he was like the lead of CND at the time. He was at the Mansfield one. And what brilliant speakers they were. They could like hold 2,000 or 3,000 more maybe at Mansfield. They'd be silent and they'd listen to every single word. They'd hang on to every word. Brilliant speakers, great delivery, and they could say absolutely anything, and you'd walk away believing them. Great speakers.
Did they help you in cementing you into the Labour Party then, or was that
No,
did it just follow naturally?
I was in the Labour Party at the time during the strike and all that, and as a young kid, 16, 17 and whatever I was, your politics are different to what they are when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s. So my dad's a striking miner. I come from a small mining village, and the impact of closing the pits was devastating. So you're part of that. You want to fight. You want to be part of the revolution. You want to save your village and your culture and your way of life. And these people like Skinner, Scargill, and Tony Benn, they're there, and you're listening to them, hanging on every single word. You think that they're part of the solution, but actually, when you've grown up a little bit, they're part of the problem, a big part of the problem.
Now, your box office now, so I'm going to move on to how that really got, because I know you as two different people. I know you as somebody that we can have an argument over politics, and I know you as somebody else who actually cares a great deal about people. It's a strange sort of conversion you go through. You
It's
At
not
one
a conversion.
stage,
No, it's not a conversion, Tony. It's who I am. I like to stick up for people. I like to represent people, but I'm not to take no nonsense off people at the same time. You know, if I'll call a spade, and if you're chatting rubbish to me, I'll tell you.
well, you call a spade a shovel more like rather
Probably
than a spade.
a
Yeah.
big shovel, yeah.
But at the same time, you were a volunteer for the Citizens Advice Bureau. You were unpaid, doing social work effectively.
Yeah, I was. I walked past the CAB one day. I was a single parent at the time. I'd just finished a job to look after my youngest son, Harry. He'd just come to live with me, and already got Charlie living. I thought, you know, I'll spend a bit of time with him, make sure he gets to school and be there for him. But, you know, when he's at school, I needed something to do. So I went and volunteered at CAB one day a week, and then I liked it that much. I went every single day when I was at school, and then after 6 months, they gave me a job, and then I went to work at CAB in Beeston, and then I got offered the deputy service manager's job back at Ashfield. So I went back to do that. Did that for many years, loved it, and you know, you feel like you're actually doing something.
You were also doing quite a lot. You were a single parent dad, weren't you?
Yeah.
That must have been, how many years that? 15, 16?
17 years.
Did you learn a lot about life in doing that?
I don't know. I just wanted to be. I didn't want to be one of these dads who's only see the kids at weekend. I didn't want to be that. I wanted to do stuff with them. You know, go on holiday with them, look after them. You know, there's other stuff like feeding them and clothing them, and you know, doing all that stuff. I wanted to make sure that I never missed a sports day, I never missed a parents' evening, I never missed a football match. And yeah, I mean, I didn't have much money at the time, but I wouldn't swap it for the world.
You would never have thought then, or even before then, that one day you'd ended in the Houses of Parliament. You were, though, very much Labour there. At least you went and worked at Gloria De Piero's office.
Yeah, well, that's a lady called Melanie, who's not a million miles away. She's
making notes of if you say something wrong, so she can put you right afterwards.
Yeah, actually, what happened was we got a fax through. Can you remember fax machines? We got a fax through to our office with this advert on, so I applied for it. And then I think the vacancy, it never happened. Then I think a year later, or 6 months later, got another message say, you know, do you still want? So I went, and a lady called Melanie.
Melanie Darrington.
Yeah, and she gave me the job, and it was all downhill from then.
And now she works for you. We'll come to that a little bit later on, because she's worked for you before. So you're Labour there, very much Labour. You start becoming councillors and things like later on, don't you? I mean, were you totally Labour there? If you cut you across it with a red Labour Party?
It's all about perceptions, Tony. When you grown up in a mining village, and your dad's a big part of the mining community, and it's, you know, there's close shop unions and it's unionised. You're sort of in that's your culture. That's in your DNA. That's what you're born into. And then you think, you know, the Labour Party is the party of the workers, and then when you actually get involved, working for a Labour MP, it was. You know, I want to be honest, I'd been there about a month and I thought I'd made a big mistake because I'd left a job which I actually loved, working with homeless kids in a hostel, which was great fun. I mean, the money wasn't very good, but it was great fun. To work in an environment where you're meeting politicians and local Labour Party officials, and I'm thinking, my goodness, this is not what I thought it was.
But you became a Labour councillor, and then there was an incident, wasn't there, when you effectively said, I've had enough of this. Tell me about that incident.
Well, there's several incidents. I mean,
the main one.
I suppose it was on the back of a confrontation I had with some travellers in Uthway, where, you know, the council wouldn't do anything to stop them coming back, and in the end, I took the matters into my own hands. I blocked the car park off with some concrete blocks. The local Labour group went mad at me, and they suspended me from the Labour group, not the Labour Party. They thought they was being big and clever at this particular meeting. One of the Momentum members said to me, "Oi, Anderson, have you ever read the works of Karl Marx?" And I got up and I just says, "Well, funnily enough, no, I haven't," and I walked out. And but 18 months later, I was that man's MP.